So don't we already
but
have
the contrary is the case, as I shortly mentioned. Yeah? The rich one, they have so many possibilities. Offshore finance.
Well, that's what I mean.
Places.
So we already had that charge, but people are able to sneak out of the system.
Yeah, we have a formal charge, tax rates, but the real tax pay is far more different.
So another third part of
this
the solution.
is another issue. Yeah.
So another part of the solution is enforcing it.
Closing these financial offshore places, which is some of the black holes in the international financial system. They have really to be reduced. They must not be closed from one day to another, but to be reduced. Yeah? And wait a minute,
I've lived and studied in Canada, and throughout the economic recession, we noticed that our banks were some of the most stable in the world during the recession. And that was due in large part because the system that you're proposing is in fact in place in Canada.
This separation between credit and investment banks?
Yes, similar to, but in terms of the two faucets that you did create, where commercial banks don't get to print mass amounts of money within Canada. It is owned by the government. Like, government has control of that.
I think this is not right. The government may control, I'm not sure about the monetary system of the central bank in Canada. But besides, the commercial banks are also able to create money in this, in putting it on the account of debitors, only by computer. This is not possible unlimited, because they have to keep in mind that some percentage of the debitors may come and wants to have cash, yeah? And so for this reason they have to keep reserves, cash reserves, and they are not able to create unlimited account money. But it is in some countries the 10 times more than central bank money, in others 20 times more than central bank money. And as far as I know, also in Canada, it's a big percentage of this account money in relation to the central bank money. Even if the central bank is in a different state and construction compared with the Fed, for example.
But in terms of that, the regulations on that rate, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that less should be print or just greater regulations. Is that what your, like, government regulations on the amount that can be?
Yeah, no, it should not be the government to regulate. It should be an independent, in relation to the government, also independent institution, but also, most important, independent from private banking system and from private rich parts of society, from this small financial oligarchy. They should not have the control over the monetary system and over the creation and regulation of money. I suppose it is difficult to imagine that such kind of model or of change could work. I would like to mention one small example. It was not on a national level, but on a regional level in the 30s in Austria. And it was the small town of Wörgl in Austria in the year of 1932. And they brought the money into circulation with this background of a growing economic crisis everywhere around. And this money was like the following example. It carried 12 fields on one banknote, and each field was for 1 month. So if this 100, I show it with this example of 100. If this 100 of this money was thrown out of circulation and hoarded or elsewhere used, if it was brought back, then it has to be covered with some kind of stamp. And as we know it from the letters, a stamp costs more or less. And for each month which passed, there was stamp, another stamp, another stamp. So who hold the money back for half a year had to pay, in this example it were 6%, so the number of 6. The longer you hold the money back or put it into other circulations, then the more expensive it became. And this simple rule was to be understood by the peasants, by the members of this town. And the amazing thing is that as a consequence of this alternative regional money, the circulation of money was re-established. The regional circulation was parallel to the official Austrian shilling, the official currency. And the regional circulation developed, and the mass unemployment reduced, whereas in the surrounding it became more and more worse. And at that time there was a big interest of many other communities in Austria and also then in other countries, but also in Austria, to establish a similar system in their region. And then the Austrian Central Bank went to court and said, I have the privilege to create money. And this was a background that this alternative and very successful model of Vogel was stopped, and all the other regions and communities were forbidden to install a similar model. Interesting is too that in the United States at the same time there was an amazing big movement of, they called it stamp scrip movement. Stamp scrip, it reminds on stamps here. Stamp scrip movement with regional alternative money, and even on the level of states inside the United States. For example, Oregon was short before installing Oregon statewide alternative monetary system. In this case, President Roosevelt, with a consulting background of his experts, I suppose, out of the financial branch, he stopped this kind of alternatives and instead focused on what is called New Deal. So the big state of the United States and the public budget brought these big programs of additional demand, which had its effect, but it was at that time the alternatives were stopped. And after that time, even the memory about what has already been in history, for example in these 30 years, was distinguished. In no economic textbook, in no history book it was mentioned, and only a few years ago